So I've been playing A Plague Tale: Innocence. I played about 2 hours and I planned on doing a let's play of it. And I thought I wanted to do a little video on it just to give my first impressions, because I think this game is not going to be for everybody. Now, that's not necessarily saying that it's a bad game by any stretch, but I think I need to just have a little talk about it. So like I said, I've played about 2 hours, and so far it's been a very heavily narrative experience. It's very story driven, which I am totally okay with. It's very, very story driven. You play as Amicia, who is a young French lady, a young, richer French lady set during the time of the Black Plague, the Black Death, and it's really interesting in a lot of ways. Like I say, you play as Amicia. You are yourself quite young, you are alone, you have to look after your little brother, who is even younger, and he's very, very young. He's a little boy, essentially, and he has this real interesting sort of depth of character development between the two of you. Some stuff goes on, I'm trying not to spoil anything, but some stuff goes on, and you have to deal with it, and you also have to deal with it while looking after this little brother that you've never really interacted with your entire life. So that's really interesting, and while this is all going on, you're being hunted, and the rats are a giant problem in this world, the plague is a giant problem in this world. Lots of real dark and gritty stuff is going on behind the scenes, which kind of becomes not behind the scenes. And I'm really intrigued by it all. I'm really intrigued by the story. I want to see where it goes. I'm really enjoying the story so far. But when it comes to gameplay and mechanics, the game is lackluster at best, and I'm going to go into why I think this, and why I think that if you're looking at buying this game, maybe go and check out a little bit of gameplay before you do. So the game is pretty much split into two different gameplay mechanics. So you have the two types of enemies, which are the humans and the rats, and so when you are facing the humans, the majority of the time it is stealth. You are sneaking around. If you get caught by the humans, it is usually instant death. They will kill you as soon as they find you, so it's an instant game over. So the way that you defeat these humans most of the time is stealth. And with the stealth sections, I'm really not a huge fan. Now, I am, just for full disclosure's sake, I'm not a massive fan of stealth games. I like stealth when you have ways of fighting your way out, or if you have ways of going back into stealth. I like stealth games where they give you different ways of approaching things, where they give you, like I say, second chances or ways to deal with it if you do get caught. I like that. But in this game, it is definitely, if you get seen, you are dead, it's game over, you've got to restart checkpoint. Now, that's fine. You know, sometimes that's appropriate, and in this game, with the lore and the story, it makes so much sense. Again, you're a young girl and your little brother. You're not going to be fighting off these people. These are guys in, you know, full plate armor sometimes with swords and axes. You aren't going to fight them off, and I get that. I get that. That's absolutely fine. But from a gameplay standpoint, it does mean that the stealth can become very frustrating, and it's not overly difficult, so it's not like you're going to be dying a lot anyway. However, what's really frustrating about the stealth mechanics is that quite often it's really, really simple and oversimplified, in my honest opinion. What I mean by this is quite often there is a man who is stood looking where you need to go, and right next to that man will be a metallic object and a rock, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess I throw the rock at the bucket. You throw the rock at the bucket, the man turns around, you sneak past. This is what the majority of the stealth is. There's no complexity behind it, there's no depth to it, there's no, oh, how am I going to approach this situation? It is literally throw rock at object. If there is no object available, throw a pot instead, which will smash and make noise. Essentially, throw something, make noise, sneak past, rinse, repeat the entire time. That is the majority of the stealth. There are a couple of moments that, you know, are a little bit more tense, where you have like a few second window. You've got to make it in time, which is fine. And one thing I will say is the opening section of the game, no spoilers, but the opening section of the game, it features this really awesome stealth section where you are sneaking around, people are getting murdered in front of you, and sometimes you are literally walking past, the person being murdered is looking right at you, and you're like, don't say anything. Don't say anything, Steve. But, you know, that bit was awesome. Like, the beginning stealth section was really, really, really interesting, really fun, really tense. And then after that, it becomes really dull really, really quickly. So I'm really not a huge fan of the stealth, and it's a shame because the story is so good that I want to get to that next story segment, and it almost feels like the gameplay gets in the way of that. So that's the human enemies. That's pretty much my experience so far against the humans. There was one bit where you have to, you get in a chase, which is pretty interesting, pretty fun. There is another fight that I did. There's like a little, almost like a little boss battle, which was kind of fun. I like those. But the majority of the stealth segments of this game so far have been incredibly dull. So that's the first main sort of mechanic, and the second main enemy, if you will, is the rats. And these are really interesting, these giant swarms of rats. These were featured heavily in the marketing as being, you know, these massive giant swarms of animated rats, and they're all animated individually, which is really impressive. From a technical standpoint, these rat swarms are super impressive. But the problem, again, comes exactly back to what the stealth problem was, is that the mechanics become very, very dull and repetitive very quickly. So with the rats, they will devour you. If they catch you, they will devour you, but the rats are afraid of light. So they don't like sunlight, they don't like fire, and you can use this to your advantage. So the majority of your time dealing with the rats is you see a room full of these rats, and you see a light in the middle of the room, and it's how do you get to that light? Or how do I light this brazier? Or how... Quite often there'll be a suspended brazier that you have to shoot with your slingshot. And again, it's this, rinse, repeat. There's some little moments that are really tense where, for example, you can pick up torches and you can light them on fires, but they don't last very long. In fact, they last only a few seconds. And so you are like wafting this torch to make these rats go away, but you can see the torch is dimming and you're like, oh no, am I going to make it to the next light source? And that's really interesting a couple of times. But like most of the mechanics in this game, it becomes very dull very quickly because it's very simplistic. There is, again, the same problem with the rats as with the humans, is that most often there is literally one solution that you can do. You see the thing that you need to do, and it's how do I get to that point? There's no... You know, there's no different ways of approaching it, there's no thought behind it, there's no complexity, there's no depth. It is literally light this torch, light the next torch, light the third torch, light the fourth torch, light the fifth torch. Maybe now and again you drop a piece of ham that drops from the ceiling, which will attract them for a little bit as they eat that, but then you're back to lighting the next torch, and lighting the next torch, and lighting the next torch. Or maybe not always lighting them, but you're, you know, traversing between these different torches, and it does try and freshen it up. You get new items unlocked as time goes on, I won't spoil them, but really, mechanically, it's very, very bog standard, very lackluster, and I feel like these gameplay mechanics, I'm 2 hours in, and I can see them, that they're going to get repetitive and dull and boring. In fact, I feel like people have said this game is around 20 hours, and I feel like that if I'm already 2 hours in and I'm starting to feel this way, that doesn't bode well, which is, again, a real shame. I might be really critical, I might be sounding really grumpy about this game, but I am really enjoying the story. The story is fantastic so far. The game has real vibes of The Last of Us. If I was to say what inspirations does this game take from, and I would say there are two, The Last of Us and Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which were both fantastic games. Absolutely amazing games, and you can really tell this game has Last of Us vibes. It has that feeling, you know, that same similar sort of world feeling as The Last of Us. Everybody's out to get you, you know, no one is innocent, everybody is a threat, and I like that a lot, and the story really portrays that. But whereas the difference between both of those games, and this is, by the way, this was a criticism, a lot of people levied this criticism at The Last of Us, which I personally think The Last of Us is one of the greatest games of all time, but a lot of people quite fairly said that The Last of Us felt like a movie with tacked on gameplay, and that is fair, you know, that's a fair criticism of The Last of Us. Even though I enjoyed the gameplay of The Last of Us, I really enjoyed the gunplay, a lot of people didn't, and in this game it's even worse than that, because you don't have that gunplay, you don't have that combat mechanics. All you've got is this very, very simple stealth mechanic and this very simple rat swarm mechanic, and so it really does feel like the gameplay is getting in the way of the story, which is a real shame because, again, there is a lot to love with this game. Graphically, it's fantastic. The game looks stunning. I'm really enjoying the world and the characters so much that I feel like the gameplay lets it down. And so maybe my opinions will change on this. I'm probably going to be uploading a Let's Play later on today, because I've already recorded about 2 hours worth of Let's Play, so I'm going to upload that, see how that video does, and if that does well, I'll continue to upload more pieces. But I think I really want to do a review on this one. I think this is going to be probably my first ever full, proper, official review, because I've never done one on my channel. Not properly. I did a little kind of review of Jurassic World Evolution a little while ago, but this is going to be kind of like that. I'm going to try and make it snappy, and I think this game deserves a review because, again, there is a lot of good in this game, but there's also a lot of not so good in this game. So that's my first impressions of Plague Tale: Innocence. If you are thinking of buying it, I would strongly suggest that you go and just look at a little bit of gameplay. It's going to be really hard not to get spoilers because this game is very heavily narratively driven, so it is going to be really difficult not to get spoilers, so you know, be careful of that. But I would highly recommend that you go and look at some of the gameplay because this game is not going to be for everybody. Some people who are more mechanically minded like I am are going to struggle with this one, and I feel like, you know, at the price point of this game, which I think the price point is fair. I think so far, I think, you know, the game is definitely of a very high quality when it comes to production, but mechanically, yeah, it's a little bit of a letdown so far. So those have been my first impressions of A Plague Tale: Innocence. Let me know if you are playing this game. Let me know if you disagree with me. If you're a little bit further on, no spoilers, of course, but let me know if you're, you know, enjoying this one or if you're not enjoying this one. But look out for a gameplay on my channel. The Let's Play will be uploaded probably later on today, so look out for that one. And yeah, I expect when I finish this game, expect a full review. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.